Hey guys, welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be talking about my labor and delivery story, and it's going to be a lot of TMI, but who cares, because that's what y'all want to hear. But shout out to all the mamas right now that are going through it, that are pregnant right now during this pandemic. Like, I know it's hard, but you guys are going to get through it, because if I could get through it, you guys could definitely get through it. Like, it's a hard time. I was hella emotional, like just so emotional. I was crying when they put us on lockdown or whatever. I couldn't even see my mom. I couldn't even, but it is what it is. Corona messed up everybody's plans, but we're gonna get through it. Okay, so how I knew I was going into labor. So on May 12th, I woke up and I was getting like crampiness, like down my my bladder area, and I was just like, oh, it's Braxton Hicks, it's nothing. Because before that I was getting so many Braxton Hicks, like I can't even count how many. Like, I would always tell Noah, I would be like, I'm going into labor, I think. Like, mine hurts so bad, like my stomach would tighten so hard. It would, like, I literally had to breathe in and out, but it was false. But before I went into labor, the night before, I went like walking around, like, a lake, and then I had this yoga ball that I would bounce on all the time. And then I kind of ate, it was like a myth saying that if you eat spicy food, it will bring you into labor. So that's what I did. I ate some spicy noodles, and that was like my go-to pregnancy snack or food or whatever. But that was my shit. But then I woke up on May 12th around the afternoon, and I started feeling the crampiness. And then I told Noah, I was like, I don't know if this is contractions. Mind you, this is my first baby. I never experienced contractions. I never was told that. Everyone's different, so I wasn't told where contractions could happen. I just know either in your back or something, but I wasn't sure because I was getting a lot of Braxton Hicks. But then I started timing it because I started getting it very often, and then I was timing it, and I started timing around 12:30 p.m. and then I was just sitting on a yoga ball, just rolling my back and like bouncing on it. And then Noah hopped in the shower like an hour later, so it's around like 1:30ish, and I was downstairs with his family, and I'm like telling his mom, like, I think I'm going into labor, like, I don't know. And they're telling me to just time it, so I'm like timing it, and it's every like 5 to 4 minutes right now during that time when I was timing it. And then I was just like breathing in and out, but the pain was like someone was just stabbing you in your bladder. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, it hurt so bad. Like, I wanted to cry in front of everyone, but I was like, it's not that bad. Well, where I was at, it wasn't that bad, but I wanted to freaking cry. But I'm over here texting my mom while she's at work. I'm like, I think I'm having contractions, and she's not even replying to me, but I'm just like, whatever. And I'm just sitting there. They ordered some McDonald's. I ate a McChicken. While I'm eating a McChicken, I have to take deep breaths every time I take a bite of a McChicken, because I was just like, I'm hungry, but then these contractions are killing me, like literally like stabbing me. And then Noah got out. Mind you, Noah takes forever in the shower. He takes like an hour. Anyways, and then I went upstairs to our bedroom, and then I'm just sitting there. I'm like, oh, I can't handle this. And it's probably around like 3:30, like sitting there like, oh, I can't, like, this hurts so bad. And it was just a mess. And then I'm like, lucky we had our bags ready though. So if I were you guys and you're like 38 weeks, 37 weeks, 36 weeks, start packing your bags, because you never know when you about to have this baby. Anyways, but I was telling Noah, I was like, I don't know, should I call my nurse? Like, do I call my OBGYN? So that's what I did. I called the nurse that was on call, and then I was telling them like my my pain levels and like what I was feeling. And she was like, okay, wait like 30 minutes or an hour. If you still feel like the pain is like getting harder, or like a lot of more pressure, just go into the doctor. And I was like, okay. And then right when I hung up on the phone, I was just like, nope, I'm going right now, because this pain is killing me. So like 10 minutes later, I went to the hospital, and then the hospital's only like about 10 minutes from where we live, so it wasn't that far. But let me tell you, driving and having contractions at the same time while riding in the car, and having contractions at the same time, it's so painful. Like Noah, every time he hit like a bump, a speed bump, or like my stomach would just like drop. Like I'm just yelling at him, I'm holding on to like the car handle thing, and then I'm just like, stop, and he's like, sorry, I can't control it, and I'm just like, it hurts. And then he's just whatever. He wasn't being rude or anything, because, you know, I was having his child. But anyways, after that, we arrived at the hospital like 10 minutes later. Then I'm walking in. Mind you, I'm like the type to like not show people that I'm in pain, because I don't like when people cater to me or like try to like help me with things. And I'm the type not to ask for things, because I'm very like, I don't want them to go out their way to do something for me that, you know, I don't know. But that's one thing I kind of wish I didn't do, was that I should have, you know, spoke up. But, you know, I was like 20 years old, I'm little, and I don't even know what's going on. I never done this before, you know. I didn't have my mom because of the whole pandemic thing. You're not even allowed to like have anyone else there besides one person, and that one person was Noah, that came with me, obviously, because it's his dad. But it's just that it just ruined my whole birth plan. But as I'm walking into the hospital, I'm like, you know, like just walking normal, and then they screen you before you go into the hospital. Like there's like the security guard, and then there's like 3 nurses, I believe, that was downstairs, and they hand you a new mask every time you like walk up to like the sliding doors. And then that's what they did to us. So they checked our temperature, they gave us a new mask, and then everyone's like, are you going into labor, and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, I hope so, because we had like our duffel bags, and we wasn't sure if we can go back to our cars if I went to labor. That's why we brought the duffel bags with us inside the hospital, because we weren't sure. The whole corona is like no in and out. That's one thing that's like difficult too, because you gotta carry all that, because you never know what you're either leaving the hospital or you're either staying. And I was just like, just bring it. And then when we went in, we went straight to triage, which is they check you in, they put you in a room where like, it's not a room where you're admitted yet, it's just triage. So like they're gonna check you and see like what's going on. So I was getting checked in, and while they're checking me in, I'm sitting there like, oh, these contractions are like killing me. And then she put me in a room, in the triage room, and then I had this nurse, and she came in. The first thing they did is they hooked me up to like the monitors, which is one is for like contractions, and then the other one is for baby's heart rate or heartbeat or something. And then I'm just sitting there, I'm just waiting for them. I hear all these other moms that are coming in like, oh, I need help, like help me. And then she checked me. She was checking to see how dilated I was, and I was only 3 centimeters. I was so mad when she said 3 centimeters, but I was happy at the same time, because I had a doctor appointment the day before, and she was like, nope, you're not dilated. Then when I got checked the next day at the hospital, she was like, you're 3 centimeters. And then I had like, after she checked me, I had like a little bloody show, which is like your mucus plug but also bleeding at the same time after she checked me. So I was like freaking out after she checked me. She put her fingers in me to check how dilated I was. I was only 3 centimeters, and then I started bleeding after that, and she was like, oh yeah, you're bleeding a little bit, and you know, that's normal, it's just a bloody show. And I looked down, I'm like, this is a little bit, this is a lot. And I'm like freaking out to know, I'm like, I'm bleeding. She was like, and Noah's the type to like listen to the nurse, like, you're fine, you're okay. I'm the type to overthink. Like I overthink about everything. Also, I was having a little issue since I was like 39 weeks. I was literally 2 days before my due date. I had some blood pressure issue. Like my blood pressure was really high towards the end of my pregnancy, so they were monitoring me. But when I got there to the hospital, they also said my blood pressure was high. So they drew some blood out of me, and mind you, she poked me on my right arm and she couldn't find a vein, so she had to do it on my left arm, and then she found one. At that point, I didn't really care if they were sticking needles in me, because I was like, get this baby out of me. Like it hurt so bad. So they drew the blood to take it to the lab, because they wanted to make sure my blood pressure wasn't preeclampsia, which is common during pregnancy, especially towards the end. They also wanted to catch it early so that they can know what to do. Other than that, I was just waiting for like 2 hours for my results. So while I was waiting, I was like hungry at the same time, and these contractions were getting more, like they were progressing, and I was just like hurry up, like where are they? And Noah's like impatient too, and he's like, okay, we're gonna go home because they're taking forever. And then she comes in and she checks me one more time, and she's like, you're still 3 centimeters. And then she walks out, and then she comes back like after she gets the result and stuff, and she tells me to put on my clothes and all that. And I'm just standing there waiting for my discharge paper after I just put on my clothes, because they're like, oh, you're 3 centimeters, you can go labor at home, you know. And then I was just, but this pain really hurts. And then I'm waiting for her the discharge paper, but there's so many other like people there that they're, you know, they're forgetting, and like they're working with other moms. And I'm just waiting, and I'm like leaning on like the hospital wall, groaning like, ow, this hurts. She comes back, and I asked her, I was like, can you please check me again, because I know this pain is not 3 centimeters. And then she's like, yeah, just take off your clothes again and then sit on the bed and I'll check you. So that's what I did. And then she came back, she put her finger back in me, and then she was just like, oh yep, you're 4.5 centimeters. And I'm like, yes. And she's like, you can either get admitted now or you can still labor at home. And I'm like, let me stay here. And I'm like calling my mom on FaceTime, like, what do I do, because you know, I like that other like opinions. There we go, I like other people's opinions, which is my mom. So she was like, you might as well just stay. And then my stepdad through the phone is like, she might as well just stay because she's about to pop that baby out. I got admitted. I got a room where I was like near all the nurses, and I was just like good, and I didn't really have to walk that far from triage. So after they admitted me, I had a nurse, and I really liked her, and they gave me a little midwife for like, you know, a couple hours, and she was really good too. So now I'm in the labor and delivery room. So my nurse comes in, and she's like looking for an IV on my right arm to put it in so she can hook me up to my IV. And I'm just laying there like, oh, this pain. And my midwife is like guiding me like, you're doing so good, like you're doing good. I didn't have my mask on because I couldn't breathe through it, but Noah had his mask on, the nurses had their mask on, and then after that they're telling me that I have to get tested for COVID. So I was happy but also scared at the same time, because I was like, I want to know if I have it or not, but if I do have it, I'm gonna really cry and all that. They're testing me for COVID because I believe if you do have it, if the mom has it and you give birth, I think they take the baby out of the room so that, you know, it doesn't move to the baby. The way they did my COVID testing is they took like the big cotton swab, and like they put it in my nose on each side for 10 seconds, and they put it deep down in your nose until they hit a wall, the back of your nose, and then they're just like rotating it like this. And I'm just like, but it doesn't hurt, it's just uncomfortable, and you just tear up. And that's what I did. I was tearing up because I was still having contractions. They did that, and then they left, and then they came back to check how many centimeters I was again, and I was still 4.5. So then I was in more pain, you know, because the more you're in labor, the more pain it progresses. And then they're like, do you want to get in the shower? And I'm like, at first I'm like, no, because you know, I didn't want to take off the gown, I didn't want to do all that. And then Noah's over there like, yes, she wants to do it, yes. And the nurses and my midwife are like, I think you should do it, it will really help you. And I'm just like, fine. And then they're getting the tub and stuff ready, or the shower, and then I'm like, I like it really hot. If you guys know me, I shower with steaming water, and Noah hates it. I'm like, okay, how long do I have to be in the shower for? She was like, as long as you need to, or however long you want. And I get in the shower, and then I'm like, oh, this feels good, like I like this feeling. I'm like having on my back, I'm asking her, can it go hotter? And Noah's like, I think that's the hottest like the water can be. But I ain't gonna lie, the hospital shower is not that bad. So, and it helped me. So the whole time I was in the shower for 30 minutes, and I was holding on to like the railing they have in there, and I was just like shivering and like, you know, groaning and stuff, because the pain was just getting worse. And then Noah's like sitting on the opposite of the, you know, shower, like the outside part, and he's just on his phone, and he keeps like looking in the shower like, are you okay, are you okay? And I'm just like, no. And I couldn't even talk to him at that point because I was just out of it. And the shower really helped. Like, it helped, but then the pain when it came, it was so bad. So 30 minutes later, I got out the shower, and then I'm still like leaking little blood from when she checked me, like the very first time she checked me. And then she was like, it's fine, it's okay. And then I'm putting on the gown, and then I lay back down. So then my midwife comes back in and she checks to see how further I dilated again. So she's like, oh, you're 6.5 centimeters. And I was so happy. I was like, yes. And then she's like, okay, I'm gonna go do something real quick. And then she leaves, and then I'm like at the edge of the bed, like the hospital bed, and they have like railings where you can hold. I'm not even on the bed, I'm like at the edge, like about to fall off while holding the railing, and I'm just tearing up. Like I was just like, this pain, when she told me I was 6.5 centimeters, I felt the pain even more when she told me, because I was so close to getting to 10 centimeters. Well, not that close, but I was close. Like I was like 4 centimeters away. I told Noah, I was like, I don't think I can do it. Like I don't think I can. Like I think I need an epidural. And I'm like holding on to the bed, and he's like, yes, you can do it, you can do it, like you got this. And I'm like, no, I can't. So I'm like clicking the nurse call on the remote, on the hospital bed remote, and I'm like trying to call for my nurse, and then she's like, yeah, we'll be there in a minute. And I felt like they were taking forever. Like when I say forever, I felt like they were taking their precious time walking down the hospital or something. And I'm like sending Noah, I'm like, go look in the hallways, go look in the hallways, like find her, because I don't care, like I need the epidural right now. And he's like, what do I do, what do I do? And I'm just like, just go. And I'm like yelling at him while crying and groaning at the same time. But I feel so bad because I didn't mean to yell at him. It was just the baby talking, like trying to come out. Anyways, and then he leaves, and then he comes back. He's like, I can't find her. And then he comes back in, and then 2 minutes later she walks in after him, and she's like, so I hear you want the epidural. And I'm just like, yes, I want the epidural, please give me the epidural. And Paige was my midwife, and then my midwife came back, and she's like, okay, listen to the sound of the water. She was making like these water sounds. I'm not gonna lie, that helped me a lot when she was doing like the water sound, and like, you know, breathe in, breathe out. She was like, her voice, I don't know, her voice was very like soothing. Like I could fall asleep while I was having contractions, but then it started like, okay, never mind, it didn't work. And then they called the epidural guy. He was a guy. He came in, and it did not take him that long to come up, because I think during the whole like COVID, it's like not that many people in the hospital, so he came up really fast. So I got the epidural within like 10 minutes, like after I asked for it. And then he came up, and he was so nice, y'all. Like when I tell y'all, he was so nice. Like he did not do anything to me without telling me what he was doing. Like that's what I like. Like I like a doctor that's gonna do things and step by step tell me each step they're doing, and like telling me like, okay, I'm gonna do this now, I'm gonna do that. And he's like, if you have a contraction, let me know. And then I stop. And I was just like, okay, yes. When I got the epidural put in, it didn't even hurt. Like I didn't feel nothing. The only thing I felt was like a little pinch, like a bee, not a bee, because I never got stung by a bee, the finger poke. It feels just like that, like a quick little poke, like bloop. And then after that, I'm gonna feel like a little tingly sensation on my leg, and it's gonna start feeling a little cold down my back, and like warm on my leg starts to get warm. And then before they gave me the epidural, they told me that I cannot eat anything solid. The only thing I can eat is like clear food, like jello, broth, and water, or ice. That's it. So I didn't even eat the food that they gave me when I got admitted. I was like, no, this is nasty, I'm not eating that. And mind you, I can't even eat while I'm having contractions, but I hella regretted that because I was so hungry after I got the epidural. I was like, okay, can I have more jello? Can I get more broth? Can I have some ice? Like I was just like hungry. And then after the whole leg tingly sensation, my legs completely got numb, so I couldn't even feel it at all. If you like was to touch my leg and you like threw it in the air, I wouldn't even feel it. Like picked up my leg and dropped it, I wouldn't even feel it. And I needed help to like, you know, do things, or like move off the bed, or like, you know, you can't move at all. Like your whole, from your hips, you're numb. That shit worked. That was like my best friend the whole night. Like my contractions, I didn't even feel it. I didn't feel nothing. And then after that, they left for a while, and then I got my jello, I got my broth, I got my ice water, and I was just drinking and eating the jello because I was so hungry. Because after they put the epidural on me, I didn't feel nothing, so I was just eating so much of the jello. I was like, just give me some jello or something. And then they put a catheter in me because I couldn't, this is numb down there, I wouldn't feel myself pee or take a shit or poop or something. And then my pee was just getting drained out by the catheter, which is crazy because I just thought that was crazy. But I didn't feel them put the catheter in, it just felt a little pressure, and that's it. And then I kept telling my nurse, it's so funny, I kept telling her that I feel hella thick, because you know how when you're numb, or say if you go to the dentist and like you're numb on your like lips or your cheeks, it feels huge. And I told her, I was like, I feel thick. She was just laughing at me because I was just being a little funny, because after that I gained a little energy, I was a little awake, and I couldn't even sleep. I kind of regret that too. So a couple hours passed by, my midwife had came back in, and this was her last, like, she was about to leave after she checked me. So she just checked me and then she went home. So she checked me and she's like, you're 8 centimeters, and I believe this is around like 2 in the morning, 2-3 in the morning, I think, but I'm not sure. Anyways, she checked me, she's like, you're 8 centimeters, and I'm like, okay, great. So I know I'm about to have this baby soon, so I take a quick little nap. But I keep like going into a nap and keep waking up, and Noah was like knocked out on the couch. He was like, she got the epidural, she's not crying no more, she's not, you know, I'm not bugging him, so he's like, I'm gonna take my nap. But and then here we go, 9 o'clock in the fucking morning, I wake up. I'm like, Noah, I have to take a shit, like a big ass shit. Like, I'm not kidding. I was crying at the same time. I was crying and telling him I have to take a shit, like I have to push right now. So since I had the epidural, you don't feel, you know, your vagina area. So when you hit 10 centimeters, they told me that it's gonna feel like I need to poop, like a big pressure on my butthole. And I'm like, oh yep, that's the feeling, like I got it. And then I'm like, call my nurse. And then Noah's like, okay. I'm telling my nurse that I need to push, like I have to poop. Like I kept telling her I have to poop. She's like, no, it's because the baby's pressing down. And then she's like, I'm gonna get a midwife to check you. So they check me and they're like, oh yes, you're at 10 centimeters. But then my inside was so like hard that it was so hard to like push him. So I was like, so I started pushing around 9. That's when, you know, everything started coming, the pooping feeling and stuff. And then my nurse, I only had one nurse in there that was sitting there with me, and mind you, I was so exhausted from the night before because I was in and out of sleep. And that's what I regret so much. I should have just slept through the night, but I was just in and out of sleep because I was so excited, nervous. All this feeling was like going through me, and then I was just trying to push. So they count to 10 and they tell you to push. So the first 2 hours I was just trying to push him out, and then she's like, okay, this is not working. So they're like twisting and turning me to try to, like, you know, get him to turn too, because he was also sunny side up inside of me. So they didn't want to, they tried to flip him over, but then they couldn't because it was like he was in a weird position. And then I'm just pushing, and mind you, it took me 5 hours to get this little boy out of me, like 5 hours. And I kept passing out in and out of like the contractions when they told me to, like, you know, stop and breathe. And then every time I feel a contraction, I push. So my contractions were like 2 minutes apart, a minute apart. So I kept like dazing off, like I fell asleep. And then when I felt that pressure again, I pushed him out. Like I'm like, okay, I need to push. And then it was taking so long that they were like trying all these like methods to try to help me push. Like there was one method, they took a sheet and they tied a knot at the end, and Noah was in front of me. I'm like laying on the bed and they told me to tug on it, and he's tugging on it so I can have something to pull, and he's pulling back so that it doesn't like just fly toward, he doesn't fly towards me. So I'm like pulling and pushing at the same time. I'm calling my mom. When I got towards the end, I'm like, you know, mom, like help me, I can't do this. And my mom's like telling me to push, you got this. And then my doctor comes in, and then at this point I have like 2 nurses now that you know, I was pushing for that long. And then so I was pushing for 5 hours that they were like, okay, you're gonna have to make a choice, like C-section or a vacuum. But I was just like crying because I was just like, help me. I was telling the nurse that I need like a washcloth, like a cold washcloth. Like I was like crying, and I was crying because it's like I was getting frustrated. He wouldn't even come out, and then like, you know, like they're telling me that I need to choose between a C-section or a vacuum, and then I'm just like, you know, I don't know what to do. And my mom's on the phone like, do not let them give you a C-section. She's speaking in Cambodian to me like, do not let them give you a C-section, you got this, keep pushing, like you got this, you got that. And that sucks too because I didn't even have my mom there. So don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. Okay, so like I didn't have my mom there, and I was just like, you know, so out of it and so tired. And okay, I just remember myself like just crying and just screaming, and I never do that. I never scream in front of nobody, and it was just like a very hard time. Okay, I hate myself. Why am I like tearing up right now? Okay, but they like told Noah to come outside of me, and I was just like, okay, just do the vacuum. And I was so scared to do the vacuum because, you know, that took a lot of risk. It's a lot of risk to do the vacuum because I really didn't want a C-section. And they told me that if I don't push him out in 3 tries, they're gonna just give me a C-section. So I just hear my mom, I hear all the nurses. So once I said I wanted a vacuum, like Noah told me, because I was like, my eyes were closed the whole time, crying, just crying. Like I was just so frustrated. Like I wanted him out. Like it's been like 5 hours, and then Noah told me all these nurses like came in, and they were just, you know, probably like student nurses as well, or, you know, other doctors, because, you know, they needed a lot of people there. So I hung up on my mom. I was like, Mom, I need to take all my strength and I gotta push him, so I'm gonna hang up on you. And then I hung up, and I'm like crying, and I just hear the nurses like, oh, it's okay, honey, it's okay, like you got this, like, you know, you're doing so great. And they just felt so bad, you know, like this little 20-year-old girl, you know, doesn't know anything about like pregnancy or like what to do. And I'm just crying my eyes out. I'm over here, they see me talking to my mom. And then so I gather all my strength, and they're like, okay, are you ready? The next contraction you're gonna push. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm crying, and then when I pushed him out with this one push, I was crying and screaming, and I was just like, I just pushed him out. And then Noah told me, I didn't even look down. I wish I did, but my eyes were closed from crying, and I was so tired and exhausted that Noah told me when she was pulling him out while I was pushing, like it looked so scary, because he said like they were like wiggling him with the vacuum, and that, you know, he was there for a while. So I'm gonna insert some pictures for you guys to see as well, so you guys will know how he looked like when he came out. And then after that, they put him on me, and then my eyes opened. I just felt him, and then I'm looking at him, and he's crying, and he's so cute. He came out with a lot of hair, and he was healthy. He was perfectly fine, and I'm just glad that I had this amazing little boy. He's healthy. He's just perfect. Like I wouldn't trade him for anything, like anything. And then they were just checking him. They're cleaning me up. And then mind you, they put him on me, and I'm like feeling like poking down there, and I'm like asking the doctor, I'm like, am I getting stitches, while shivering. Like I'm gonna insert a video where Noah's cutting his umbilical cord, and you can hear me shivering in the back. And I was just like, you know, from the poking also, I was like so shaky and so tired.
Right here. It's a little bit rubbery. Oh, watch out for your hand, Layla.
Wait, what's
Right
wrong?
here.
Right there with that
Yep,
line?
perfect.
Oh.
There you go.
And then she didn't tell me how many stitches I got, but I got a 3rd-degree tear. Yes, a 3rd-degree tear all the way to my anal. And I was just like, what? I never heard of a 3rd-degree tear. And then I was just shook. Like, I can't believe I even did that. But also, I think it's from the vacuum. That's why I got a 3rd-degree tear. And they were just stitching me. I felt that shit. Like, the stitching was it hurt so bad. But other than that, they cleaned me up. And you guys already know, when I asked the nurse, the first question I asked her, I was like, when can I eat? And she started laughing. She was like, you are so funny. Like, you know, like, who asks like when can you eat after you give birth? But I was so hungry from not eating before, and she was like, no, I got you, like, I'll bring you some, what do you want, like, I'll bring you something, like, you want fruits? And I was like craving fruits. I was like, yes, bring me some fruits, bring me whatever you got, I don't care, like, I'm hungry. And then they brought me fruits, wow, and I was eating while they were cleaning me up and then all that, and they put the ice pack on me. Let me tell y'all, the ice pack was my best friend as well. Like, you guys need the ice pack to, like, you know, help the swelling go down. And they were just, like, you know, pushing down my stomach, draining all, like, the blood and all the pee, and they just kept doing that. And then after that, I got moved to the postpartum room, and we were there for like 4 days, I believe. I'm not sure, like 4 or 5 days, I think, because Jace ended up having jaundice, which is like your skin is like yellow, and they wanted to make sure he was okay, so they kept us overnight. And then I think we were there for 4 days, actually, yeah. So they kept us there overnight to see if the jaundice will go down. So they kept him on a Billy blanket, which is like a blue light supposedly. And also, it's like yellow skin is common in Asian and Mexican babies, and it's like also the red blood cell, and especially he got vacuumed out, so he had little like swelling on his head right here, so the blood is like pushing down, the head is pushing, or like the bump is pushing down, so it's like pushing the blood. So I was like scared, and mind you, your hormones are like shooting everywhere. Like, I'm crying, I'm emotional, because when they told me he had jaundice, I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even know if he was gonna be okay. I started freaking out, so I didn't even sleep at all. I called my mom crying. I'm always calling my mom crying during the whole time staying at the hospital, because, you know, she wasn't there. And that's one thing that made me so emotional, was that I didn't have my mom there. I didn't have my, you know, someone to help me and actually help me ask questions of what I needed to do. And then Noah was like, he'll be okay, you know, like, you'll be fine. And I'm just glad Noah's that type, like, he, you know, doesn't overthink, because I'm an overthinker. And then the next morning, the pediatrician came to check Jace to see if his jaundice went down while he was in the Billy blanket, and then she told me that it didn't go down, and actually rose up. His level rose up. And then they were like, we're gonna have to take him to the NICU. And then they took him to the NICU, and I was so sad, you guys. Like, I was crying to my nurse. And that day, the next day, they told me that I had to get discharged because, you know, they had no reasons to keep me there anymore. And then they took him up to the NICU, and I was so sad. Like, I didn't want them to take my baby. Like, that was my baby. And I was crying. I was so emotional. Like, just seeing him in the incubator was just hella, like, depressing and hella sad. And then they didn't even let Noah go in. It's only one parent visit, and I had to go home. So he was in there, and they were gonna call me if they discharge him in the morning. And during the whole COVID, like, you only get a 1-day pass, and if you use that 1-day pass in the morning, you can't even come back at night. You can't even do none of that. So when I went home to go shower and washing up, I actually was breast pumping, and you can breast pump and put it in a container and bring it to the NICU. And that's what I did, and I dropped it off to him at like midnight. I dropped it off to the nurse, and that was like my pass, my 1-day pass. And then I was just, you know, exhausted. I didn't even sleep at all when I was in the hospital. I was just too worried about him, you know. And then when I went home the next day, they called me at like 10 in the morning, and they told me that oh, he's ready to go home, you can come pick him up. You guys don't know how happy I was. I was so happy. I was just like, yes, I get to pick up my baby, bring him home, and he could see his grandma. I was just so happy. But on that note, my recovery was a bitch. Like, it was painful. Like, no one told me that recovering was gonna hurt this bad. Like, especially with a 3rd-degree tear, I couldn't even walk. Like, I was like walking like so slow that I don't even know. Like, it was so bad. And then I couldn't even sit down on the bed. It was so hard for me to hold Jace because, you know, I had, you know, babies, they like to be rocked, they like to be, you know, bounced. I couldn't even do that because my butt hurted. Like, it hurt so bad. And I remember coming home, I took my 2nd poop. I cried so bad. I wanted to go back to the hospital because, I don't know, it just hurt. It felt like there was a glass in my butthole. TMI, but that's what it felt like. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. And then I had to use like these witch hazel cooling pads. I wore diapers, and let me tell you, diapers were the best thing ever after I gave birth. That was like the best thing. I wore that for like a month straight. And then, yeah, after that I started recovering, and I'm 2 months postpartum right now. So if you guys want to know more about my postpartum and what did I use to take care of myself down there, let me know and I'll make a video on that. But other than that, that's what happened during my labor. It was sad. It was crazy. Like, shout out to the moms that are like, you know, holding it down, because it's just a crazy world right now. Like, I couldn't even imagine. I was just very emotional, and I just feel so bad. Like, I just feel so sorry for all the moms. But it is what it is. Life happens, and we just gotta get through it. But I'm letting you guys know now, after you guys have that baby, it's a blessing. Like, everything around you is like, I don't care, I want to be with my baby. This is my baby. But I'm gonna show you guys some clips and some pictures so you guys can see baby Jace. And he's 2 months right now, so you know, he's going through that, wanting to stay up a little longer, and